how human interaction boosts sales and loyalty. Welcome to today's webinar. My name's Graham Smith. I'm the Marketing Director of SCi Sales Group. I'm joined today by Alicia Bentley. I have about 30 years experience in B2B marketing, a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and I sit on the Telemarketing Council of the DMA. Alicia is a sociology graduate with an interest in human interaction and digital marketing, currently experimenting with creative writing. So today's webinar is about human interaction. Let's begin. So the emphasis on digital marketing has, we believe, affected investment in other channels. Question we're asking today: have we lost sight of the benefits of live human interaction and what it can bring to B2B sales? So there are 5 chapters to this webinar. You can see the 5 chapters listed. Alicia will go through the 5 benefits of human interaction, which is chapter 4, and then I'll take over on chapter 5 and go through a case study, which is based on some work we did with eBay Motors Pro. So please do stick around for that. I'd like to first of all define what we mean by human interaction. So for us, it's a two-way, one-to-one live conversation. So with that definition in mind, we believe that human interaction is limited to field sales and telemarketing. Some people may feel that events are also a form of human interaction. But we believe that events are normally a one-to-many scenario rather than a one-to-one, and therefore it's outside of our definition. But if you want to include events in your definition of human interaction, then please feel free to do so. So let's take a look at the first section, what's happened to human interaction. So here you can see a chart of UK advertising spend. It tracks the years 2000 to 2013, and you can see that spend has in some cases remained static, and in other cases has taken a bit of a dip. You'll notice that both spend on press and TV took a fairly big dip, 2009-2010, and has taken a dip again. What is the reason for this relatively lackluster performance in advertising spend? Well, there's one channel missing from this chart, and that's the internet. So let's take a look. I think it's fairly obvious what's happened. Spend on internet advertising has rocketed, going from last place to pole position. And as all marketing budgets are limited, that has obviously affected the amount of budget available for other channels, including human interaction channels of telemarketing and field sales. There's some research that we did on where and how frequently you should use human interaction. We're going to review the results now. So the first question we asked was, did you have human interaction before making your last 3 purchases? And the results of that are going to be displayed. So here's the number of buyers who had human interaction before purchasing. 68%. 68% of buyers had some form of human interaction, either a telephone call or a face-to-face meeting, before making a purchase on their last 3 purchases. So this figure includes both new and repeat orders. If we examine just new purchases, the figure actually rises to 89%. So the benefit of human interaction in winning new business is clear. But the research becomes even more revealing and interesting when we examine order value. So average order value with HI, 68,000, well, £68,032 to be precise. average order value without human interaction drops to £1,000, 1,018. So this supports the theory that when it comes to high value complex sales, buyers want to talk to someone and have the reassurance that they are making the right decision. Now there's further details of this research in our white paper, which you can download from our website. Please go to www.scisalesgroup.com/knowledge. So let's now take a look at frequency. So over the years, we've noticed that on a 60-day program, that can involve somewhere between 8 to 9 interactions. One of the reasons that that figure varies is because it depends on whether you include events as a human interaction. As I said earlier, for us it's outside of our definition, but you may well decide differently. So let's take a look at a typical 60-day program. So this shows all of the non-HI interactions over the 60 days. You can see that there are emails, there are downloads of product sheets and case studies, etc., etc. So for me, this looks a little bit sterile. But perhaps more importantly, I have to ask the question, where is the BANT qualification, which is so essential in lead generation? Without checking if the contact has budget, authority, need or timescale, it's impossible to move them from a lead to an opportunity. You could indeed waste valuable time and money nurturing someone who will never be able to buy your product or service. So let's add human interaction into this diagram and see the impact. So the items in red circles are where we would argue human interaction occurs. Now any lead starts with need and authority, and that happens on day one. So it's a quick call to establish if they need your product or service, and indeed are they the decision maker. Now they may not have budget or timescale at that point, so they need to obviously go into some sort of nurturing program. So on day 5 you email them a relevant white paper. On day 8 you would invite them to a seminar. And you can notice how the human interaction occurs normally after some sort of non-HI activity. So on day 13 you're calling them to discuss the seminar in more details. And that's an ideal opportunity to check BANT. Have you now got budget? Do you now have a timescale? Day 24, again, you're discussing perhaps a case study that they downloaded. Have you got budget? Have you now got timescale? And that runs all the way through the program until day 43. Finally, on day 43, they've confirmed that they do have budget, they do have a timescale, and that lead now becomes an opportunity, which obviously results in a face-to-face meeting on day 48, another form of human interaction, further discussions day 52, resulting finally in a signed contract on day 60. Without HI, the momentum of the sale would, we believe, be slower, and an accurate BANT qualification virtually impossible. Also, I just want to add that we're saying 8 to 9 interactions over a period, or over a 60-day campaign. If it was a 90 or 120-day campaign, exactly the same number of interactions normally, just spread over a longer period. So now let's compare HI and non-HI channels. So here we have the results of some research done by B2B Marketing Magazine. They asked the question about quality versus quantity for lead generation, and there were 5 channels chosen: live events, telemarketing, email, search engine optimization, and direct mail. One of the things that I'd like to point out is that, first of all, the 2 best channels for quality, which is the red columns, were telemarketing and live events. But if we take a look at email, we notice that whilst it does deliver quantity of leads, the quality is perhaps left a little bit wanting, which further underlines the benefit of human interaction in perhaps telemarketing, where you are able to band qualify the contact before moving them on. So HI can produce quality leads, but what are the other benefits? Let's take a look. So it's your birthday, congratulations. 5 friends congratulate you in different ways. If you take a look at the list, ask yourself this question: which friend makes you feel more valued? Is it Sally with a text message, Peter with a birthday card, or perhaps Simon who visits you at home? Take a moment to think about that. We actually asked the same question to managers on LinkedIn. In fact, over 600 managers engaged with this particular piece of research. We asked them which friend makes you feel more valued. Here's the results. So it would appear that Simon visiting you at home makes you feel most valued, followed by Heather, and then lagging behind are Peter, Sally and Raj. The interesting thing for us is when we apply the results of this within a marketing framework. So the reason for asking this particular question in this way was to take out any prejudice that people may have to particular marketing channels. So if we look at this, these results within a marketing framework, it again becomes a little bit more revealing. So you can see that Simon is, for us, field sales. Heather is telemarketing, Peter is direct mail, Sally is mobile marketing, and Raj is email marketing. Notice how the 2 electronic media don't make people feel as valued as the 2 channels that use human interaction, namely Simon and Heather with field sales and telemarketing. So that demonstrates how human interaction makes you feel valued. I'm now going to pass you over to Alicia, who will go through the 5 benefits of HI, whilst I go off and make myself a cup of tea. So here's Alicia.
Thank you, Graham. So I'd like to briefly outline the 5 core benefits of human interaction for B2B sales. So to begin with, human interaction produces better product demos. We would argue that complex sales are easier to explain using human interaction, and the real-time two-way flow of conversation makes your product demonstration far more effective. Very often the combination of online demonstrations and telephone can produce significant results. Secondly, it's intelligent selling. Smart people use human interaction, and this is because you can use your skills to control the conversation and convince the buyer about the proposition. They become relaxed and less defensive, which ultimately leads to a quicker sale. Thirdly, it's easier to handle objections. So within human interaction, you can predict possible objections and satisfy them convincingly. No amount of FAQs on a website can ever cover all the possibilities, nor can they answer all the potential queries that may arise. The 4th benefit is the revealing insight that's often gained by HI. It provides a great opportunity to map the buying team, gather unpublished sales intelligence, and bank qualify prospects. Careful probing by an expert telemarketing agent can also reveal hidden information, which is often more reliable and up to date. Lastly, as Graham outlined earlier, based on our research, human interaction makes customers feel valued. We asked over 600 managers on LinkedIn which channels made them feel the most valued. Field sales and telemarketing topped the list by a mile, and both have human interaction. And the benefits for you are that valued customers are more likely to trust you and display loyalty. This is particularly relevant for internet businesses, which are situated in a highly competitive environment. Remember, on the web, other suppliers are just a click away. So Graham has returned from his tea, so I'll just hand you back over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alicia. I'll finish off my tea later. So Alicia's gone through the 5 benefits of HI. This is actually available as an infographic on our website. So if you go to scisalesgroup.com/knowledge, you'll see that there's a section on infographics. This one will be available, and indeed there's a number of other infographics that you may want to download and share with your colleagues. So I said at the beginning that we would go through a case study on eBay Motors Pro. Let's take a look at that. So eBay, the world's leading online auction and shopping website, have a section that's devoted to car dealers or to car purchasing. So car dealers have for decades relied on classified adverts. You may remember the back pages of local newspapers being filled with adverts for car dealers. Basically eBay have taken that and taken it online. So adverts on eBay Motors Pro are designed to generate multiple leads, driving footfall onto forecourts. So there were a number of sales challenges. The go-to-market strategy for eBay was a mixture of direct marketing, eBay's own sales resource, and an external telemarketing agency. Although the proposition was well received by the industry, it wasn't really achieving its full potential in terms of market penetration and indeed usage. So we were engaged to create awareness of the proposition by offering a free trial, to accelerate the registration of dealers, converting them from the free trial to sign up, and then to offer active support, particularly for the newly registered dealers, show them the benefits and maybe a few quick wins. So that was the sales challenge. How did we provide the solution? So there were 3 elements. There was B2B telemarketing, field sales, and account management. And obviously what I want to highlight here is that although this was an online proposition, we actually used human interaction. So we have a mix of the two. So the B2B telemarketing, I'll deal with that first. So we assigned a dedicated team of agents to call the principals and marketing managers of pretty much every car dealer in the UK. A mammoth task, I think you'll agree. We registered them for a trial and then later engaged in further consultation calls to gauge their experience of using the site and to offer any additional support. So towards the end of the trial period, naturally we re-engaged with them on the phone, and our agents transitioned the dealers onto contracts with eBay Motors Pro, at which point obviously they started to actually pay for the service. So the next stage was field sales. The UK motor trade kind of divided into 2 categories. There are the single site independent dealers, and then there are these larger groups that I'm sure you're familiar with, that have sort of several hundred showrooms around the UK. Now for these larger dealers we realised that B2B telemarketing wasn't going to be the only solution. We needed a field sales team, and so we employed a number of field sales agents. They were incentivized to acquire a number of dealers per month, and they applied what we would call a consultative selling technique to ensure that every major dealer fully understood the benefits, but also so that we fully understood their needs and wants, and obviously that insight was then passed back to eBay. The third element was the account management. So we employed a number of account managers, field-based account managers, and their job was to enhance the relationship between eBay and their clients. So think of the field sales team as being the hunters and the account managers as being the farmers. So these account managers met with dealers on a regular basis, worked with the users of the site to ensure their listings were correct, searches were being optimized, and that the larger car dealers were deriving optimum ROI from eBay Motors Pro. So during this, obviously, they built a rapport with the dealers over a period of time, and it kind of underlined eBay's commitment to the dealers and made it more tangible. The idea was that they would attend around about 40 meetings per month and provide details or detailed reports to eBay on the dealers' views, some insight, and really allowed eBay to adapt and enhance their value proposition. The results of all this? Let's take a look. So in the first 3 quarters of the engagement, you could see that we doubled eBay's base of registered dealers, and the conversion rate of trial to registered users managed to increase that by approximately 10%. But it's the next stat that we're particularly proud of, and I think that this does underline the value of HI, increasing their market share from 8% to 42%. I think you'll agree that that's quite remarkable. You can see that we've got a testimonial from the Director of Business Development at eBay Motors Pro, just to underline what we were able to achieve. So I've demonstrated there a case study where 3 forms of human interaction were used and the results that we were able to achieve. What I'd like to do now is to come to a conclusion on this webinar and cover off 3 main points. So what's happened to human interaction? We've shown you that the last decade has seen a rapid increase in spend on the internet and digital. Naturally, that's affected the amount of budget available for other channels, including HI. So is it possible that we've lost sight of the benefit that two-way, one-to-one live dialogue can bring? Where and how frequently should HI occur? You've seen that with HI, average order value 68,000. Without it, it drops to just $1,000. Underlines the value of HI in those high-value complex sales. When it comes to winning new business, 89% of new orders had some form of HI, either a telephone call or a face-to-face meeting. How frequently should it occur? Will vary from campaign or program to program, but on a typical 60-day campaign, you're looking at about 8 to 9 human interactions. And when we compare HI and non-HI channels, for us, HI is really the best way to bank qualify a sales lead. Top 3 most effective channels, according to research by B2B Marketing Magazine, for lead generation at least: events, telemarketing, and email. A program that uses all 3 could prove to be the winning formula. So that concludes today's webinar. I hope you found it of use. The email addresses for both myself and Alicia are on your screen now. If you have any further questions, please do email us. Also, I'd like to draw your attention to the QR code in the bottom right hand corner. Click the link and you'll be taken to a discussion page on LinkedIn. Please do join in the debate. Also want to highlight that the white paper that formed the basis for this webinar is available from our website, scisalesgroup.com/knowledge. Thank you again for taking time out of your day to attend this webinar. We really do appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope that it's profitable.